country where people are allowed to say what they want unashamedly, and you will
well, go
not
on, then
have
say it. Say
you
the
will
M.
not have
Go on,
free
say.
speech.
Go on, say the M word. Go on.
No.
Hang on.
Invite. No.
No.
I don't want you to invite this woman to say a racially harmful term in front of me, because I'm the only on here.
Myron Gaines and this woman right here, don't know her name, but it doesn't matter, absolutely destroy Piers Morgan, Marc Lamont Hill, and this woman that I don't even know whose name is either, Charcuterie or something. I don't know her name, but these two do a great job of destroying this whole panel over their ridiculous notion. They're trying to come in here and demonize Shiloh Hendricks and treat the Shiloh Hendricks case as equal to the Carmelo Anthony case, when they are clearly not equal. Clearly, as one is worse than the other, but because of our current cultural climate, which we are trying to fix, you got people like Piers Morgan saying, oh my God, acting all horrified by a woman saying a bad word. Let's see how this debate goes down.
The Fresh and Fit podcast, Myron Gaines, the host of Night School on YouTube, Marc Lamont Hill, Lily Gatis, a social media commentator whose video defense of the N-word mother has so far been viewed millions of times on X, and the New York Post columnist and author Ricky Schlott. Well, welcome to all of you. Ricky, look, my take on this is a stain on all their houses, right? I just don't know what is happening to society when you have such vast sums of money being raised for what seems to me to be deliberate, racially charged, motivational reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're fighting ugly with ugly right now. And I think this level of racial tribalism and hostility is just simply not sustainable in such a diverse democracy like America. I think it's, one is really a reaction to the other. I think both campaigns are really hideous, and I think we're showing our ugliest colors. I mean, in the scheme of things, these are small sums relative to the population of America, but you do see, I think, a really tremendous explosion of ugliness and racial hostility that I think that we should all be ashamed and embarrassed of.
Yeah, I mean, you described it, I think, in one of your posts as genuinely, is this a psyop? This would be the best $1 million invested by a foreign adversary to start a race war in America. And I knew exactly what you're getting at, because many of the comments, I think the comments have now been suspended actually on both of these funding pages, because people were quite obviously deliberately misusing them to post race.
Absolutely. I mean, if you go through some of the comments on either of them, you have White Lives Matter on one side, and like suggestions that the teenage boy who was stabbed was somehow like a manifestation of white supremacy, and it seems to be just a fight at a track meet that has nothing to do with racial hostility in the first place. And the poor father of this young man who died too said, please don't make this into a racial issue. And yet on his own Give, Send, Go campaign, there are comments after comment saying this is White Lives Matter, we're avenging against Carmelo Anthony's family. I mean, on all ends, this is ugly. I think that it's really co-opting the charity and giving community. I mean, I feel bad for the fundraising platforms, because I don't think this was the intention originally. But unfortunately, I think that people are really starting to take over good intents and the charity industrial complex to make it into a victim industrial complex. And it's really sad to see.
Well, that's what you get when you have one side pushing race into everywhere and making race the focal point of everything. Before we had it to where it's like, you got to be colorblind, don't judge people by their race. And then you had the fucking liberals coming in the last however so years, the last 10 years or so, the woke coming in and saying, no, actually, it's racist if you don't see race. If you ignore the black person's race, then you're ignoring their experience, whatever the fuck that means. So now, yeah, congratulations, woke. We're not ignoring their experience anymore. Now, when we see a bunch of people of a certain skin color doing certain things, we're noticing. Congratulations.
One of the founders of the Give, Send, Go site a little later in the program. But Marc Lamont Hill, you were shaking your head there. I mean, what's your take on this?
There are a couple of things that were said that I think are really interesting and important. One, there is an outside audience of people who are watching all of this and opportunistically using it for their own agendas and projects. I have an investment in believing X So I'm going to jump in the comments of this GoFundMe, etc. I have an investment in Y. I'm going to do the same thing. But what I don't want to do is compare these two things as if they're opposite sides of the same coin. For me, the intention of the campaign matters. In the case of this woman who is using the N-word, the woman isn't disputing using the N-word. The woman isn't disputing being racist. And the comments that are being left on the site before they were suspended and the attitudes behind it weren't saying she's being railroaded, she's being misrepresented. They were simply saying, we support racism. And I think that's disgusting, no matter who's doing it. On the other hand, the people who are fundraising for Carmelo Anthony, the argument here isn't, yeah, we did something and we don't care like the other woman. The argument is we're being misrepresented here. We're being railroaded. This was a self-defense claim. This is not an act of violence. This isn't first-degree murder. I'm saying what they're saying. This isn't my argument. They're saying this is a first-degree murder claim that is wrong. This is actually self-defense, and we need the money to make sure that we get a fair trial. I think, and so whether you agree with his argument or not, I think raising money for a fair trial is different than raising money for a racist.
I mean, I think...
Wow. I mean, no surprise there. Marc Lamont Hill's full of shit. Yeah, there are racist comments saying, yeah, we're supporting this because, you know, F white people pretty much for the Carmelo Anthony case. And by the way, Carmelo Anthony did admit he did it. When he got arrested, he told the cop, it's not alleged. I did it. I stabbed him. So, yeah, full of shit, Marc Lamont Hill.
Common theme between the two, and this is not to pass any view about it at this stage, although I have strong views about it. I guess the common theme is that both of them say that as a result of all the publicity, they've been doxxed and had all their personal details put everywhere on social media, which is, of course, the modern scourge which gets involved. And that as a result, they've had death threats and they have security issues and they have to move home and so on. You know, I understand that part of the argument. You know, when you're at the center of a firestorm in America and you're not used to public attention, then the levels of intimidation, threats, and so on that can come your way can be extremely intimidating, if not outright dangerous. So it's different really to taking a view about either of the cases to simply say that the commonality is that they both, I think, have said in defending the amounts that have been raised.
By the way, real quick, when you want to talk about self-defense, you could argue that the woman, the you know, Shiloh, whatever her name is, you could argue, well, she was defending herself and her children against someone that was going through her bag. Now, I know it was a kid going through her bag, blah, blah, blah. But she didn't just walk up to some kid and start, you know, saying, hey, get out of here, N-word, or, hey, what's this N-word doing here? Like, it wasn't like that. You could argue that she was also provoked. Like, if you want to argue that Carmelo Anthony was provoked or it was self-defense, you know, obviously, I don't think that's true. But you know what? Even if you want to argue that, then you have to give the same kind of leniency to Shiloh.
We have to defend ourselves, either, as you're putting it, through the courts, but also in his case, the alleged killer, that he has also, I think, had direct threats against him. And in the case of the mother using the N-word in that despicable manner, she has said she's had a lot of threats too.
My quick response to that would just be, let's assume everybody's telling the truth. Let's assume she's telling the truth, and let's assume he's telling the truth. If he's telling the truth and he was doing self-defense and he's getting harassed and doxxed, and of course we already know lies have been told about his GoFundMe campaign saying they were spending it on mansions and cars, all the kind of racist tropes. If that's true, he's being mistreated, and I think that's a sort of very easy case to make. When it comes to her, however, let's assume she's also telling the truth, that she used the word, she thinks the kid was acting like one, she feels like she has the right to use that word against that small baby because of whatever age appropriate thing the kid did. If she's telling the truth and she's getting doxxed and harassed, I don't know if I want to reward her behavior with $500,000. I don't think she should be doxxed. I don't think she should be harassed. I think she has been mistreated to the extent that no one should be. You have a right to be racist. You have a right to free speech in this country. But I'm not donating money for it, and I feel a lot worse about her GoFundMe than the one for the person who's been railroaded.
Yeah. Well, Lily Gatis, you posted a defense of Shiloh on X. It's been viewed 2.5 million times, in which it was entitled, White People Are Finally Fighting Back. Stand with Shiloh Hendricks. What did you mean by that? Tax day has passed, but for millions of Americans, that's where the trouble begins. The IRS is now ramping up enforcement.
Ads. Let's see what this woman has to say about defending racism. But then you know.
Here's the thing, white people have been under attack for years. It's been systematic racism. As much as Black people and people of color want to talk about systematic racism in the United States, it's quite the opposite. They get preferential treatment when it comes to getting a job, when it comes to getting into colleges. White people, on the other hand, have been getting attacked relentlessly. Look at 2016 and BLM and all the riots. We just had to sit back and watch people burn down our cities and do nothing about it. So the way to fight back against essentially this anti-white hatred that's been systemically, ingrained in U.S. society is with white unity. We don't see white unity on our side.
Hang on. Okay, but hang on. Sorry, just to be clear, this has got nothing to do with anything you've just said. This is a disgusting racist woman who repeatedly spews the N-word, first at a young child, and then at the person taking the video of her, does it with complete impunity, does it numerous times. We are talking about a bona fide, unquestionable racist. And so I don't understand why what you've just said to me bears any relation to white unity or anything that you've just said. She's just a racist.
Then what are the people that supported Carmelo Anthony's fund? What are they? You don't think that they're racist? And I'm sorry, like this outrage that Piers Morgan is showing because she said a bad word, it's ridiculous and I can't take it seriously. Like you can't expect, people to get outraged over someone saying a word when you weren't showing nearly this much outrage over someone funding somebody for actually unaliving someone.
You wouldn't dispute that.
It's not about her. It's not about her. It's about
well, it is about her
coming together and supporting another white person. And it doesn't matter.
Why would you want to support a white racist?
Because I want to support free speech, and you cannot have free speech in a country.
That's fine. You can support free speech, but you also have to be accountable for what you say. Would you use the N-word out of interest?
Yes.
You would?
Mm-hmm. I do, quite frequently.
You use the N-word quite frequently. Well, why? Other than the fact you're a despicable racist. Are you?
Some would say I am. I guess according to the ADL, I'm a white supremacist. I'm a neo-Nazi.
If you use the N-word repeatedly, you are a racist, then, are you?
Sure, I'll embrace that. If that means forwarding, helping white people achieve freedom of speech, real freedom of speech, which, by the way, Shiloh Hendrix is being attacked on all fronts. They're trying to bring legal charges against her. They're trying to get her children taken away. So you were saying Carmelo Anthony, it doesn't matter. That's a different
Sorry, but just to be
thing.
clear, you just said to me you use the N-word regularly. In what context? Do you use it with Black people?
Yes, if it's appropriate.
When would it be appropriate to use the N-word? When would it be appropriate?
Anytime I feel like it.
So you're an unashamed racist?
Correct.
Well, do you understand that makes you a despicable human being?
I guess so. I don't really care. I mean, why are we not talking about Shiloh Hendrix? Why are we talking about?
Well, actually, I think you've moved it on in this debate very quickly to your own racism, which explains why you've supported her in public and why you've got all these views. You see no problem with a woman shrieking the N-word repeatedly because you yourself are a despicable racist, and you've just proudly admitted that with a smug grin on your face, which is pretty horrifying, actually, for most.
No, what's horrifying is giving someone $500,000 for unaliving someone. To me, that's horrifying. Yeah, again, I'm sorry. Piers, give us a call a few weeks ago or a few months ago or a few years ago where we might have actually agreed with you. But when there's a give, send, go where an alleged murderer gets $500,000 and a lot of the supporters of that campaign are doing it for racist reasons, it's kind of hard to care about a woman saying the N-word. Because they're not the same. One is clearly worse than the other. And this is kind of like the point that everyone's getting at. Like, we're acting just as horrified that this woman called a child the N-word, which, again, I'm not condoning. I'm not saying it's good she did that or it's okay. But we're acting as if that's the real horrific thing, when in reality, I think this over here is the more horrific thing. And I think any sane person would agree with me.
To have to watch. And shame on you. You're entitled to do it, and I'm entitled to call you despicable.
Well, shame on white people for allowing themselves to be systematically discriminated against in the United States. This is our country. This is a country that should be.
What do you mean your country?
Because I'm white and my
What, there are no black people in American history? Is that what you're saying? That they've all just landed in America, invading your white country? Is that your position?
Mm-hmm.
You know, this reminds me of like when Andrew Wilson's debating feminists or debating like conservative women, and like he'll call them covert feminists because then their feminist talking points come out. And like Piers Morgan and stuff, like, yeah, listen, he tries to be like a fair dude and stuff like that. But this is his like libtard, covert libtardedness coming out.
And they were brought here technically.
My God, do you understand how dumb you sound?
This is stupid. This is stupid and racist. And at some point, we have to ask ourselves, do we want to reward this kind of disgusting behavior by platforming it?
I don't disagree, Mark. Listen, I didn't know she was going to say that. I don't disagree with you.
No. Yeah. I'm with you.
Dude, you had Marc Lamont Hill justifying sending money to Kamala Anthony. Like, you don't think that's more disgusting than someone defending saying the N-word? Because again, any sane, non-libtard person, non-brainwashed fucking person would say that no, supporting an alleged murderer is way worse than supporting someone that says the N-word. They're not equal. Let's stop pretending that they're equal. They're not equal. And let's stop, like, this is exactly the type of stuff that we're trying to wipe away. Where it's like we get just as angry at someone using a word. We get just as angry as someone using a word than we do at someone allegedly murdering someone and supporting an alleged murderer.
I don't think you knew ahead of time. I'm saying at this moment, someone who's saying it's technically black people brought up. No, technically Africans were stolen, enslaved, and they built this country.
Well, they weren't stolen. They were sold. Sold by who, by the way, Mark? Sold by who?
This country. And the idea that you can justify calling a baby the N-word by saying that white people are losing the country is...
I'm sorry, but this whole thing is just upsetting me. And why does he keep saying baby? This wasn't a 2-year-old. This was like, well, they claimed it was a 5-year-old. Looks more like maybe like an 8 or 9, 10-year-old, like older than 5. But why does he have to keep saying baby? Let's just start calling Austin Metcalf a baby. Well, why did Carmelo Anthony have to stab a baby?
Absurd. It's morally bankrupt, and it's honestly besides the point. I mean, all these are just distractions from the fact that she wants to justify dehumanizing and even animalizing a small black child. It's disgusting.
What is it?
Yeah, I never said that.
No, you may as well have done because you're just an unashamed.
That's the implication of your
racist. Let me bring in Myron Gaines because you've been smirking and laughing. What's funny about any of this?
Well, I mean, I find it interesting that you guys want to virtue signal and, wag the finger and say she's a racist and everything else like this.
No, she admitted she's a racist.
Well, let me
I'm not wagging a finger at anybody.
She's self-identified as a racist.
Here's why are you stopping a black man from speaking, huh? You need to educate yourself, sit down and listen when a strong, independent black man is talking. Allow him to educate you.
Respect, Myron. I don't need to wag a finger when somebody says, yeah, I'm racist. I use the N-word against black people. I don't care. That's a racist. I'm not wagging any finger. I'm not accusing anybody. She is admitting it proudly. Even you can't defend that, surely.
Everybody is racist to some degree. The reality is it depends on, a lot of people want to be politically correct. A lot of people want to sit there and say, I'm not racist at all. We all have biases. We all have stereotypes. We all make jokes. We all are racist to some degree. Now, how racist you are is a whole other situation, but everyone is racist. That's number one. Next thing I want to say, see, I think this Shiloh, Hendricks, and Metcalf situation is a microcosm of a much bigger problem. And that bigger problem is what I call systemic organization. And what I mean by this is for decades, we've had black people literally running around with black supremacy, committing crimes, not getting accountability for their actions, and then they blame the system for it. For example, George Floyd, criminal. Ferguson, criminals. Freddie Gray, criminal. A lot of these people are criminals, and what ends up happening is they challenge the police officer, they get into a physical altercation, things go left, they die, something happens, use of force is utilized, and then they want to cry about the result, when in reality, it's not the police killing black people, it's black people killing black people. And if you want to talk about black on white violence, Black people kill white people 2 times as much. And on top of that, most of the shootings in America, a lot of the times, are white people killing, white cops killing other unarmed white men. So this whole systemic racism or police brutality or, oh, it's all so messed up. The reality is this. Black people have been able to get away with a ridiculous amount of privilege in America for a very long time. They're able to be racist with impunity. They're able to call white people crackers without being challenged back. And quite frankly, white America's had enough of it, and the chickens have come to roost. Now, look, am I saying that's awesome? Am I saying that's great? No, but for literally the better part of almost 2 decades since the Obama era, we've had to have BLM and liberalism shoved down our throats, and quite frankly, we're all tired of it.
Right, but just to be
clear, do you think saying the N-word is right? So listen, before we get to Piers Morgan's stupid question that I'm sure he's going to ask, I'm sure it's going to be so stupid. Myron Gaines is completely right. 100% correct. First of all, he was right about everyone is racist thing. Yes, everybody has racism in them. Everybody. All right. Yes. And he's absolutely right. It's just, how racist are you, pretty much? Because we all judge, listen, it's in our nature to judge things by their cover. It's how we're able to defend and protect ourselves. It's important to stereotype everything. We stereotype everything, from race to gender, to just cultures, people who live in certain areas. Like, we stereotype everything. So yes, it's bad when you're really racist, where you believe it's like how everything, how like autism is a spectrum, and your gayness or your straightness is a spectrum, like sexuality, gender is a spectrum. Well, racism is kind of a spectrum too. Like, yeah, there's over here where it's like, I hate these people, I want to see them all gone. And then there's over here where it's just like, yeah, listen, I'm going to make some racist jokes. Or, yeah, did you ever notice that, this group of people does this? And it's not just whites that are tired of this. Listen, Myron Gaines is not white. He's tired of this. I'm not white. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of seeing a group of people, us making as a country excuses for a group of people, and this group of people just blames it, and not just the people, but the culture, the liberal culture that we live in, just making excuses that it's not really their fault. It's because of the system. It's because they're poor. It's because they're this. It's because their culture. It's like, it's never their fault, and they're not held accountable. So now it's getting people in this group to act worse and worse, and we're getting sick and tired of it. And I don't think all black people, I mean, obviously I have Myron Gaines here. I don't think all black people act, trashy or ghetto or whatever like that. I don't think all black people are like that. But the fact of the matter is, we're just making excuses for this trashy behavior, and it's leading them to just act more trashy. And with anything in life, if you don't make someone take accountability or responsibility, then you're not helping them. Because how can they help themselves if they don't acknowledge that they are at least majority of the problem? In order to fix yourself, you have to admit that you're the one in control, that you are the problem. If it's someone else that has control of you, well, then you can't do anything about it. So then you don't do anything about it because it's this person's fault. Does that make any sense? What do you guys think about this so far? Leave a comment in the comment section below. Give this video a like if you liked it. Let's continue.
Clear, you would have no problem with one member of this panel openly saying she uses the N-word at black people with impunity and is proud of being a racist. You have no problem with that?
My worldview on the protection of the First Amendment and freedom of speech overrides my personal feelings. She has the right to say
That's fine.
it.
You can support the First Amendment, but you can also have a personal view about what she said.
My feelings are irrelevant. The Constitution is the Constitution. That's what matters.
Oh, that's fascinating. Hold on. So when it comes to chastising black Americans about their behavior, about calling white people crackers, as you say, about their moral claims about the racist system, you can levy a judgment against black Americans for all the things they do. But when it comes to this woman saying the N-word, and this other woman endorsing it and saying that she herself uses the N-word, now all of a sudden we can only talk about the Constitution and the legal right. We can't offer any moral judgment against it. That's disingenuous. And it's as the only black American up here, that's quite frustrating to hear.
Here's the thing. If you want to be soft and get offended by that, that's your fucking problem, not mine.
Let me ask
So this
Ricky.
isn't about.
We're not even.
Let me ask Ricky. Ricky, I want
This
to.
isn't about being soft any more than when you were desperately
Actually, you know what? As a
saving
matter of fact,
these white people.
Hold on. This sensitive nature that you have is precisely why we have this problem.
It's not about being sensitive. It's about I didn't articulate. Hold on. Let me finish, Myron. Let me speak and then I'll let you respond. Myron, I didn't articulate any sensitivity here. What I said, in the same way that you levied a judgment against black people, I'm levying one against the claims you're making.
Yeah, Marc Lamont Hill being like Marc Lamont Hill's part of the problem. Like they don't want any judgments on black people. Like in any time that someone judges black people, then they're always like, well, what about when whites do this? Oh, well, what about slavery? Oh, like they always have to place the blame on someone else. We as a country are not allowed to judge black people or else we get called racist. But yet we're allowed to judge white people all we want. Myron Gaines is right. Like black people have had a privilege and we're getting to a point where we're tired of it because you have people like Marc Lamont Hill who, if you cast any judgment on black people, oh my gosh, it's the worst thing ever.
I'm more sensitive than you were when you made your claim. I'm simply saying I disagree with you. And to immediately jump to you're being sensitive is just a distraction. I'm making an argument here. Just respond to my argument.
No.
If you're struggling with sleepless nights and exhausting days, you might.
Morgan, you gotta stop all these ads.
Now, and my argument to respond to that is this. Political correctness, liberalism, and making sure that we are politically correct and don't use certain words to offend people is precisely why we're in the situation that we're in. For decades, we've had to literally tiptoe around saying certain things around certain people, while the other group of people has been able to have impunity and be able to be as racist as they want to be, as violent as they want to be, without any type of consequence. And if you call it out, you're labeled a racist. The reality is this. Black people don't want to live around black people. I don't want to live around a bunch of black people. I move to neighborhoods where it's majority white because I know I'm safe. Now, this is uncomfortable reality that no one wants to say, so I'll say it for them. Black people commit a lot of crimes. A majority of the violent crime committed in the United States is committed by a small percentage of people, and they tend to be black men. Look, the reality is the reality. People don't want to say it, but the political correctness and being nice and not wanting to tell the truth is precisely this problem. And the reason why you're seeing all the support for Metcalf and Shiloh, etc., is because white people have not been able to step up and say what they want to say for a very long time because of what I said before, systemic, organized, where they don't take accountability for their
All right,
decisions.
let me bring in Ricky to respond. Ricky.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to say that I agree that virtue signaling went too far, that political correctness went too far, but we're going from virtue signaling being the norm and being praised to now vice signaling being the norm and being praised. It's not just a matter of does this woman have the right to use that word? I believe that she has the right. I disagree with it. But is she now being rewarded with $500,000? Why are we rewarding people for performing vice instead of virtue?
Why are we rewarding people for unaliving someone?
This is not healthy. This is destructive to our society. This is destructive to our social fabric, to our culture, to our ability to live with other fellow Americans. It's gross to reward someone for bad behavior. It's one thing to tolerate it, to say that she has the right to do it, but she called an autistic 5-year-old the N-word.
Oh, shut the fuck up with your autistic 5-year-old. Is there any proof that this kid was autistic? Was there any proof that this kid was even 5? Now listen, we don't know what led up to before that video, but if this Shiloh Hendricks woman is telling the truth or what have you, if what you see in there is to be believed, this kid was going through her diaper bag. Now, am I saying that the correct response is to call this kid the N-word? No, I am not saying that. But come on, this isn't just a case of some woman just going up to a kid and saying, this is actually another case of just because this kid he's 5 and he's autistic and he's brown. Well, I don't need quotes to say he's brown. He was brown. But this is another case of like, listen, like, did that father this is so weird, by the way. Is the father even there? Was that guy filming even the father? Like, who knows what the heck is even going on there? But the proper response is, hey, tell your kid to not go through other people's stuff. If that were my kid, who was that same age, and they were going through a diaper bag, I would be like, what are you doing? Don't touch other people's things. That's not your bag. And I would have apologized to that woman. I am so sorry. First of all, my kids would have already known, don't go through other people's shit. But if my kid, being a kid, had a lapse in judgment and wanted to go through someone else's bag, I would have told my kid something, and then I would have apologized to the mother and said, listen, I'm sorry, but my kid did this, sorry. And then, and then they probably would have said, yeah, that's okay, blah, blah, blah. Or even if they wanted to have an attitude about it, fine. But then we would have went about our day. But it doesn't seem like this kid was told anything. I don't even know where this person's parents or even were. Like, we don't know the full situation of this story.
I'm sorry, but I feel like we're kind of like missing the point in the actual context. You can say that it's part of this bigger meta story of black and white America, but it actually is just like a short little clip, and you don't even know the context of it, and it's actually gross. And if we can't just say that it's gross and bad, then I don't really know where we are.
Well, I think it's interesting to me.
Someone take away this woman's right to vote, please. Yeah, thank you very much.
Lily Gaddis, you retweeted Nick Fuentes, the white supremacist, by saying he said black people just raised $500,000 for a cold-blooded killer who stabbed a white teenager to death. So I don't want to hear one word about the Shiloh Hendricks fundraiser. Either everyone gets to be tribal or nobody does. Why would you retweet that?
Because I agree with it. Because we have to fight fire with fire. I mean, at some point, why are
nobody does?
Why are Jewish people allowed to be tribal? Why are black people allowed to be tribal? But as soon as white people stand up for themselves, we're labeled a racist. And by the way, you call people racist when you want them to stop talking about things.
No, I called you a racist because you admitted you were racist. Hang on. I called, just to be clear, I called you a racist because you openly, proudly admitted you're a racist. So it wasn't a question of exposing you or pointing my finger or trying to get this out of you. You proudly sat there, bold as brass, and said, yeah, I use the N-word all the time against black people. I'm a racist and I'm proud of it. That's what you did.
Racism is just having a preference. I prefer not to live around black people. I prefer not to live in a country where white people in our country are disproportionately attacked by black people. Where in my country, you can have an Austin Metcalf where he asks a guy to leave and he gets stabbed in the heart. I prefer that. That's a preference. Now, what a real racist is, in my opinion, is seeing someone as less human. I'm a Christian. I believe everyone's created in God's image. So I don't see anyone as less human. But that doesn't mean I'm not allowed to have a preference and say, I don't like what happens to be coming out of this community or that community. How is that a bad thing? How is that not just a preference?
Because you've literally made black people sound lesser humans. You don't want to live around them. You want to use the N-word in relation to them, a word that you know causes that community unbelievable offense.
Is that my fault? If they have bad behavior, if they want to act in a certain way, if I have to cross the street and be afraid that maybe because of the crime statistics that are very real, by the way, is that my fault or is that their fault for having bad behavior?
I remember like 10 years ago or so, there was like, it was popular to like show white people being racist. Like you would see these viral videos going on where like a white person says something to a Mexican person or something. And then like, oh, this racist white woman. And it was like showing how white people were racist everywhere. How come then we were allowed to do that and hold white people accountable for their racism? But when it comes to, you know, there's a lot of videos being shown around of a lot of, again, I'm doing what the woke want, and I'm noticing skin color. And so I'm just doing what you want, liberals. I'm noticing skin color. That's what you wanted. It's racist to be colorblind. So now I'm noticing race, and I'm saying, wow, there's a lot of freaking videos of black people being trashy and black people being violent. You know, maybe there's a problem there. Maybe we should call this behavior out. How come we're not allowed to do that as a country, but we were encouraged to point out when white people were racist back then? How come? How come is that? Again, ask yourselves that question.
That's mind-boggling to me for multiple reasons. I mean, we're talking about bad behavior. You know, we've never lynched you. We've never enslaved you. We've never done any of the deep-seated structural forms of injustice to white people that white people have done to black people. And yet...
And this is always their go-to. But my lynching, but my slavery, but my Jim Crow laws. That's their always, what's that? That's what they always go to.
To claim some kind of moral superiority in the midst of, and again, in the context of a conversation where a white woman is calling a 5-year-old autistic child the N-word, and we're talking about black people's bad behavior, this is absurd. And the idea of fighting fire with fire, again, is a dishonest argument. Just to take us back to the point here, the people who are supporting Carmelo Anthony's campaign believe that he was wrongfully charged and they're trying to get him legal defense. The people who are defending this woman are saying, yes, we know you called the 5-year-old autistic black child the N-word, and we want more of it. We approve of it. We support it. These are not the same thing. And it's bonkers to me that we couldn't all stand and say, hey, it is wrong to call a 5-year-old autistic black child the N-word. I mean, Myron, let me just ask you that question. I think this is a yes or no question. Correct me if I'm wrong. Do you think the woman was wrong to do what she did to that child in that park?
I don't approve of that. But what I will say is that it's very important to understand the entire context of what led us to this position. Because again, Metcalf and Hendricks is a microcosm of a much larger problem. Earlier, we were talking about tribalism when you were mentioning Nick Fuentes' tweet. Here's the thing. Black people could be as tribal as they want to be. You have people like Tariq Nasheed, Dr. Umar Johnson running around about black power and marry black women and keep it in the hood and all this other stuff. But if white people assemble and say, you know what, white power, we need to keep our nation white, they're immediately ostracized and labeled as supremacists, and they get banned off every single platform. I find that interesting. And matter of fact, you went ahead
Isn't that the same thing?
No, actually, it is the same thing. Because here's the problem with black people.
No,
you
it's not.
Hold on, let me finish this. Black people practice the very racism they cry about. You guys can gather together and say Black Lives Matter, Black Power, but if white people get together and say white power and gather together, they're considered white supremacists and they get banned off every single platform. Why is that Jared Taylor and Nick Fuentes are banned off every platform for practicing white nationalism, but black people are allowed to stand every single platform getting interviews on a Breakfast Club? Explain that to me. There's a two-tier situation here where black people are able to benefit off of being racist while whites are not. And what we're dealing with right now in America is literally a backlash to this black supremacy has been able to run around unchecked for a long time, and no one has the balls to call it out. Here's the other thing I want to say. Everyone's flipping out over Shiloh Hendricks is saying the N-word.
Hey, can I respond to the point you just made, though?
No, hold on. Nobody flipped out like this when the United States was getting destroyed in 2020 because of black protesters destroying every liberal city in America. So I don't want to hear it about, she made $100,000 because she said the N-word. Who cares? They destroyed billions of dollars of structure because someone got killed who was a criminal. That's the problem in America. You guys get a privilege that no one else gets to enjoy. You could be racist.
Okay.
And
all right, I have to hang on. I've got to hold it there. We've got another guest joining us. Mark, I'll come back to you to respond to that in a moment. But we've been joined now by Jacob Wells. He's the Christian founder of the Give, Send, Go donation site that both campaigns have been hosted on. Thank you very much indeed for joining me, Mr. Wells. First of all, your reaction to what seems to me to be a blatant hijacking of both of these fundraising host sites for different reasons, but definitely been hijacked by. Let's go back to the panel there.
Yeah, sorry, listen, I really don't care what the guy from Give, Send, Go has to say.
Ricky, it seemed to me a lot of inconsistencies in Mr. Wells's position, not least the donning of the Christian hat when it suits them, but then removing it when it doesn't.
You know, I think it's definitely tough to make the call here and there and where to censor. I err on the side of not censoring as much as possible, but I agree with you that the selectivity of having issues with abortion, but not with these campaigns is certainly a problem. But I also want to go back to our point before, too, and make the point that I hate this argument that because some people were tribal, we should be tribal, too. And shouldn't we want to live in a society where we say tribalism is bad in general and negative in general, and so therefore we should be erring towards individualism and not fighting tribalism with more tribalism? I think that's a net negative.
I agree.
Shut the hell up. Can someone please take this woman's right to vote away, please? Can we get someone here? Stupid. Yes, I agree. We shouldn't be so tribalistic, but we end tribalism by not being afraid to call it out. Okay, so if you want to call out how white tribalism is bad, fair enough. I agree. But can we also be allowed to call out black tribalism? It's either this. If you want a equality and equal society and stuff, either tribalism is good, either tribalism is allowed, or it's not. Okay, not just it's bad when whites do it, it's good when blacks do it. No, it's either it's good when blacks and good when whites do it, or it's bad when both blacks or whites do it. Now, if you are in the position that it's just bad no matter what, then you should have no problem calling it out when blacks do it.
Myron, your last words on this.
Okay. Because I never got to respond to Myron's other.
The thing with tribalism, it's a natural human instinct. Like, we are literally designed to want to be in communities and want to be a part of a set of community because it ensures our survival. It's been that way since the beginning of time. So the thing is that people are typically going to align with people that share similar features, and that's why we have the tribalism we have going on right now. So the problem is it's not going to go anywhere. I think the problem is that we've had this penting up for literally decades, and this has been a response to it. You have people that are coming out and supporting someone who you guys might deem as a terrible racist, but I think it's also very important to understand how we got here, because if we're going to look at the smaller problem, we can't look at the bigger problem. And it's what I said before, unchecked systemic.
All right, Marc Lamont Hill, your last words on this.
This repeated use of the word I think, first of all, I want to just register that as offensive, particularly as someone who doesn't identify as a member of that community and who is not, right? I think that's incredibly
I'm the definition
offensive
of African American. I'm the definition of African American.
And troublesome. And to as a Sudanese American or an outsider who's using African American, the very technical term, the same way that Elon Musk is an African American, I think it is a bit disingenuous. But the bigger issue here, I think, is that, you know, this idea of.
So again, Marc Lamont Hill going with the whole, I mean, he's being tribalist right now. He's saying, well, if you don't agree with me, you're not really black then. You know, if you don't agree with him, then you're like, you know, an Uncle Tom, you're all these things. It's ridiculous.
Of one side to the other side often loses track of this issue of power. To use his example, when black people stand up and say, hey, let's build our own stuff. Hey, let's have a black power movement. That is not the same as a white power. I'll let you speak uninterrupted. Let me finish, please, my Sudanese brother. So when a black person says, hey, let's preserve our culture, I have no problem with Italians or Irish people or anyone else saying, let's preserve our culture. But when we don't talk about ethnicity, but actual race, and when white people say, let's preserve whiteness, it's an exclusionary practice. It's about preserving laws and practices and tactics that do harm to other people. A black power movement was about opening stores and building businesses. A white power movement was a white power. That's the giga. A white power movement was about something very, 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 very different. A white power movement included lynchings and included Ku Klux Klan, etc. So let's not pretend that these are opposite sides of the same coin. When white people say, let's save our country, and even using the language of our country, when black people built this thing, when you say that, you're talking about forcing people out of the country. You're talking about laws that discriminate. You're talking about doing harm to people. Let's not pretend these are the same thing, just like these GoFundMe campaigns are not the same thing. I'm okay if everybody gets out of the GoFundMe industrial complex. I'd love that. But let's not pretend that supporting someone for a fair trial is the same thing as supporting a grown white woman berating and calling the N-word to a 5-year-old autistic black child. And the fact that everyone in here can't be unanimous in condemning that says exactly how they're not the same.
I totally
agree. Shut the hell up. What do you mean you totally agree? First of all, again, Marc Lamont Hill has to keep calling the Carmelo Anthony case, that give, send, go. He has to keep calling it for a fair trial. He is going to get a fair trial. I'm sorry. What was he just going to get thrown in jail and just locked up? Like, he is going to get a fair trial. He doesn't need $500,000 for that. Like, I get it, like legal fees and stuff like that and hiring a good lawyer. Sure. But I mean, I heard the video is going to get released soon. But from all the reports that have come out, it seems like it, you know, he even admitted it, like, oh yeah, no, it's not alleged, I did it. And he even asked, is this self-defense? But there's been no reports that Austin Metcalf attacked him. There was no reports that that it seemed like Carmelo's life was in danger or anything like that, that he had to use deadly force. There was no proof of that. And what's funny is, if this were a cop that would have done the same thing to a black man, Marc Lamont Hill would have no issue coming out and saying, oh, this wasn't self-defense. Oh, no, that wasn't justified force. He would have no issue saying that. But because the perpetrator is black, now all of a sudden, Marc Lamont Hill has to try to paint it out that this is just for some fair trial. But he's full of shit.
I'm going to go to Lily Gatis and just ask you one more time. I mean, you've been so unashamedly proud of being a racist today, proud of using the N-word whenever you feel like it. You've had a bit of time to think about this. Is that how you want people to leave this panel debate, with thinking of you as a disgusting racist?
I don't really care what people think about me. As long as you care about what people think about you, you have no power and you lose your country. What I care about is freedom of speech. And if you're not allowed to say the most offensive things in this country, you do not have freedom of speech. I don't care what anybody says. So that's the main crux of this situation. That's what I care about with this situation. It is, we have lived for far too long in a country where you can have your life destroyed. And people say, oh, she doesn't need this money. Her life's destroyed, by the way. She'll never be able to get another job. She's got children to have to support. And I don't want to live in a country where you can say an inappropriate, rude thing, which, by the way, black people can say things to white people all the time and they never get canceled. There's no backlashing about this. I want to live in a country where people are allowed to say what they want unashamedly. And you will
well, go
not
on then,
have
say it. Say
you
the
will
M-
not have
Go on,
free
go on. Say the N-word. Go on.
No.
Hang on.
Invite. No. I don't want you to invite this woman to say a racially harmful term in front of me, because I'm the only on here. So if she says it, I'm the victim of it. So please don't invite her for ratings to call me the N-word, because that's basically what it's going to be. There's a bunch of white people up here. You and one Uncle Tom on the left here, and asking her to say the N-word while I'm here is ridiculous. You would not sit here with a Jewish person and say, please use a Jewish slur in front of this Jewish. It's ridiculous. I understand you don't have any bad intent, Piers. I understand what you're trying to do, but we already know she's a racist, and I don't want to invite a racial harm to me.
I hear you.
A racial harm to me. Like, this is the point that we've gotten into this country, that you're able to stab and unalive a white person, and that's okay. That's justified. But just a white person just saying this word is enough to cause harm to Black Marc Lamont Hill to Marc Lamont Hill here. Like, that's the level of, there's been the book written, White Fragility and stuff. Can we start making Black fragility popular? Because, I mean, Christ, like, if you can't even say a word without spurging out over it and saying this is going to cause a word is going to cause harm to me, that is wild. Yes, we could stab you if you're white, if you just tell me something. And by the way, by just telling Carmelo Anthony, from what all the stories, was just told to move. Hey, can you move? And he was so fragile, he couldn't handle being told to move, that he felt, stabbing this dude is justified. Yeah, I know there's a little bit more to it than that, but still, that's what started the whole conversation. That's what started the whole confrontation. And now you have Marc Lamont Hill over here, who's spurging out and saying, you're going to cause harm to me if you say this word, even though they're not in the same room together. Even if she were to say the word, Marc Lamont Hill, his whole day will continue just fine. There's going to be no harm coming to him. But that one word holds enough power in this country because we have allowed it to hold power in this country. Listen, I am not pro saying the N-word. I am not saying that, oh yeah, you should go around saying this. But the thing is that if we always stop ourselves, the more that we treat this word like if it's some kind of like unspeakable thing, the more we're going to get people like Lamont Hill who can't even just handle hearing that word uttered. It's not about her. It's not about rewarding her behavior. It's trying to put an end to this very culture that has been created and been allowed to fester here in this country. That's what this campaign is. It's to put a stop to this nonsense. It's our way of fighting back. And the fact that we live in a society where unaliving someone is looked at, in some cases, it's even looked at as worse, is being looked at as being as equal to calling someone a bad word. That's sad. And we have to fix this. And this whole Shiloh thing is the start of fixing this. Nature is healing, people. And if you like nature, then subscribe to Nature Dog Food. I'm kidding. I'm not sponsored by anybody. But what did you guys think about this? Sound off in the comment section below. Subscribe to my channel if you really liked it. Give this video a like. If you like seeing Piers Morgan panels, I have a whole playlist for you that you could binge on and enjoy.